So here is what you're going to be doing today. You're going to be putting this wheel assembly on for the front wheel. This is called an omni wheel. It's a wheel that will rotate around. Whoops, let me see. They'll rotate around normally, like a normal wheel. But then these little rollers will let it roll sideways. So it's really nice for a two-wheel drive robot that we're designing here. The front of the robot will slide side to side as it's doing it. It won't slip those wheels. Okay, so now for some of the parts that we need for this. Let's go ahead and just put them all in here. We're going to go to place. We're going to start with, let's just start with the wheels. So let's go wheels. And we're going to place the 4-inch Omni wheel. So you'll need 2 of those. And you'll place those in your drawing. And then we're going to go back to place. Let's go ahead and go to our axles. Axles are underneath shafts, I believe. Let's see. Yes, shafts. Shaft. And we're going to place the 3.5-inch shaft. 2 of those. Let's go place again. To hold those wheels into place, we need the clamp collars. And we're going to use our 0.25 clamping D hub again. We're going to put in 2 of those. And then to hold the shaft into place on our little bracket, we're going to place some bearings. So let's go to our bearings. We're going to place the flanged bearing 0.25 inch. And we're actually going to place in 4 of those. Okay. Then next we're going to place in our actual piece that it's going to fasten to, and that is on the channel. And it's a 1.5 inch channel. And we're going to place in 2 of those. Alright, so let me see here if I've got all the pieces. I believe I do have all the pieces. Alright, so let's take a look first on how this thing is put together. So the way that it's put together is like this. Let me get to a view here where you can see it. I have a lot of extra parts here. But first you're going to have just this channel. That's the 1.5 inch channel. You're going to mate it to the bottom surface of the assembly. And you're going to line it up with this second hole. It's the first hole on this beam here, but from the end, it's the second hole in is where that's in, is where we're going to mount it to. So just constrain it there, mate it to it, and then align a couple bolt holes. Then from there, on that channel, we're going to place 2 bearings. So the bearing goes in there. Now, if you look closely at the bearing, let me get here to the bottom view of it. The bearing, it's a flanged bearing, it's called. And it has a little flange on it here. The flange is on this side. You want your flange so it sticks in that hole. And what it does by sticking it in this direction, notice the flange is out here. It's a little bit wider. The hole's this size. What it does by doing it this way, it doesn't let that bearing come out. If you pushed it in from the other direction, your bearing could fall out and just be floating on the shaft here in between the 2 sides of the channel. So this bearing goes pushed in from this direction down to where it's flat on that little shoulder of the bearing, and then just the opposite on this side, where again the bearing has a little shoulder here that sets against there. So there's where your bearing sets in. Bearings set in. Then you're going to put in the little shaft collar. Ooh, is that the piece? Yeah, it is one piece I forgot to have you place in. So let's go place, and we're going to go back up, and we're going to go into clamp collars. And this is a 0.25 shaft collar. You also need 4 of those. So you place in 4 of those. Alright. So now what that does that I just started to show you. The shaft collar goes on each end of the shaft. And it has a little set screw on it. Let's rotate it around right there. That little set screw gets tightened down. It actually gets tightened down on the flat spot of the shaft. I'm not too worried about you lining it up with flat spot on that shaft. But you tighten it down on there, and that holds that shaft from sliding in and out, which also in turn holds these 2 bearings from sliding in and out of there. So you need a shaft collar on this side and a shaft collar on this side. So a shaft collar on each end of it. And what I did for the shaft then is I just flushed the shaft on this end. It does make your axle stick out a little bit far on this end. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You could get it centered up in there, might be a little bit better. When you actually would be designing your robot, you'd probably cut this shaft off so it's a little bit shorter, or maybe just make it stick on the inside, whichever. All right. So now as far as the wheel itself goes, the wheel, just as we did on our other wheel, you're going to place your clamping D-ring on there, or D-hub on there. You're going to place it on, align it from the center of the holes, and then align the bolt holes in place with it. I then mated it to the back side of that shaft collar, so just on there tight to that. And it gives it a decent little gap between the frame and there, and that really works pretty good. So there is kind of how your wheel goes together. You'd put one of those wheels on each side of this. Now what I'm going to go ahead and add to is I'll add to this step by step on how to do this. But for now with this video, this just kind of shows you how it's done. And for those of you getting kind of comfortable with this, just throw it in there and make it all fit together. You can kind of see how it's put together there. Everything flush here. So get it put together like that and you'll be golden. One other small tidbit. Now notice this. I'm going to look at this left side of my robot and I'm going to rotate it down a little bit. Move some extra things out of the way. Now if you look at this, notice something. If I put this wheel here, right where I have it mounted, and that's where that wheel needs to go, because that wheel is mounted right to your bracket, notice what happens with our back wheel. Our back wheels, I should say. So this is our front robot, this is the back of our robot. The distance from here to the frame is different. What we actually need to do is we need to go in there and find that constraint that we did for the motor, that we mounted the motor straight down. We need to rotate this motor around to where it's mounted straight up. So if you remember how that is done, you highlight the motor. You're going to find the motor over here in your list somewhere. There it is, the never rest. This is number 2. You go down through your different constraints in there and hover over them. All right, there was our mate. That's where we mated 2 of our parts together. Can't really tell real well what that is. Let me rotate it a little bit here, see if I can tell what that is. All right, that was the mate. That was the centerline mate. Then flush. That's where I made the frame of it flush with the motor mount. The angle. There is the angle that I did. Ooh, this might be it. Let's see. Set to a 0-degree angle. There's 2 of them on there. Let's see if I can tell which one it is. That is the one that makes it angled with the frame, the edge of the motor. That's the one I want. So it's making this line aligned with there. Right now I have that angle set to a 0-degree angle. If I change that to a 180-degree angle, notice what that did. That rotated up to where my motor is facing straight up. I'll go back over here to the side of my robot, zoom in. Now notice how nicely this wheel lines up with this wheel. Your robot will be pretty much straight across and drive pretty straight. You'll have to do the exact same steps with the wheel on this side. So we can rotate that around. Again, click on the motor, which right there's the shaft of the motor. That's my other never rest. I can open it up. And you're going to go down through there and find which one of these. It's going to be one of those 2 angular constraints that we have on that. I'm guessing it's that first one again, but I'm going to let you kind of twist around and look at it. It depends on what order you've done it in comparison to the order I've done it in, onto which one of those 2 constraints you're going to have to edit. So, get that turned around there, and that's going to be great. Get your other motor mounted down there, and that's going to be great. And I will go ahead and do a little video showing you the next part of how to do that step by step if you need that. All right, carry on.